Opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for your kind hospitality. I feel welcome. Thank you also for being our covenant partners with the Florida Conference. It is because of you that the light of Christ is alive and well in Pass-A-Grille Beach. It is because of you that folks know about the United Church of Christ and the ways in which we touch lives through our gifts. So on behalf of the Reverend John Vertigan, our conference minister, the Reverend Leslie Etheridge, our associate conference minister, and Neil Watkins, we would like to say thank you for being you. Shall we pray? May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O God, my strength and Redeemer. Amen. In Howard Thurman's Sound of the Genuine, it is an iconic baccalaureate address that he gives to the women of Spelman College in Atlanta. He makes reference to a story, and the title of the book is The Blue Cats of Castleton. It is built on a New England legend that says no cat mother wanted to have a cat kitten that had all blue hairs and pink ears. Because if she had such a kitten, it would be that the kitten's fate would hear the song of the river. And if the kitten heard the song of the river, it would follow the melody and move to the river and be in quest of a home where the song was recognized. So the kit hero of the story was born all blue hairs and pink ears, except for 4 black hairs in its tail. One by one, the black hairs dropped off. And the last night the kitten was asleep, he heard the rumbling of the song of the river, and in a kind of drunken stupor, he got up and he shook himself and wandered down to the river. There the river taught him the song. "Sing your own song," said the river, "sing your own song. Out of yesterday's song comes, it goes into tomorrow. Sing your own song. Sing your own song with your life-fashioned beauty. This too is the song. Riches will pass and power, but beauty remains. Sing your own song. All that is worth doing, do well, the river said. Sing, sing your own song. Certain and round be the measure, every line graceful and true. Time is the mold, the weaver, the carver, time and the workmen together. Sing your own song well. Sing well, the river said. Sing your own song well. So the kitten learned the song and went in quest of a new home. And how would he know that he had found a home? He would walk in, stretch out, and begin singing the song. And if the person who heard him recognized the song, he knew that he had found a home. Without going into all the details of the first places, he ends at a pewter maker's house. He walks in and stretched out in front of the hearth and began to sing the song. As soon as the pewter maker heard the song, he froze, and a faraway look came into his eyes, and then he remembered. Long, long ago, the pewter maker knew the song of the river. And during that time that he knew the song of the river, every piece of pewter fashion was an expression of an inner dream he had about the creative possibilities of pewter. He was so proud of it until he put his imprint motto on the bottom of it, so that everybody would know that he who knew the song of the river had stamped the pewter. And then he married. Babies began coming. Tourists began demanding more and more pewter. Budgets increased, money was hard, so he began grounding out the pewter cups. He was so embarrassed in his psyche that he didn't want to put his name on it. Then he heard the kitten and remembered that somewhere along the way he had forgotten that he knew the song of the genuine in himself. So, LATRELL, what does this have to do with think about these things? You ask good questions. I contend that the author of today's pericope is encouraging the Philippians to be of the same mind. However, friends, I believe that before that can happen, we must listen for the authenticity of our own voices in order to know and hear and embrace the authenticity of others in our faith communities. It is important for me to note that these words were written by a person chained in a Roman prison, wondering whether he would be sentenced to death for his socially provocative gospel, writing to a community under related social and economic duress. Both are experiencing extreme pressure to back off from their proclamation of the crucified Messiah. And friends, while 4:1 is actually a summation of what was before it in chapter 3, it also lays an important groundwork for what is to follow. Everything that Paul says to the Philippians has deep roots in the quality of relationship, a combination of deep and genuine affection and respect. This congregation is both a source of joy and a sign of the power of the gospel, and thus Paul names it as his crown of ministry. Their willingness to offer Paul's financial support and to risk the life of a personal messenger during Paul's imprisonment are signs of their mutual regard and compassion for one another. The practice of the mind is spelled out in Philippians 2:1-5. It means participating in the uniting love and compassion of Christ, as those qualities spells themselves out in very concrete and diverse ways of concern for each person in the community. The directionality of concern made clear in chapter 2, verses 5-11. It is always toward the most vulnerable in the community, a move from power and status toward those without it. New Testament scholar Jane Lancaster Patterson states, and I quote, "It should be no surprise that a community under as much pressure as the Philippian church would be experiencing fractures in its leadership. No doubt there were decisions that needed to be made, and these decisions were confusing and risky." In 4:2, Paul is addressing the two female leaders who appear to be struggling with how to move forward together faithfully. And Paul is appealing to other leaders to come to their side to help with the conflict and remind everyone of the history of these courageous women. Paul doesn't tell them what to do. He only reminds them of the pattern of the mind of Christ. And he trusts them once again to work out their soul's salvation with fear and trembling, for it is for it is God who is at work in them. He goes on to say in 4:4, rejoice. But this doesn't mean just to expect to arrive at joy, but to commit oneself to practicing joy every day. 4:5, no one is at their best right now, including you, so be gentle to absolutely everyone. And in 4:5, he says, Christ is near. Take moments to experience the reality that you are surrounded by transcendent compassion that is larger and deeper than you. In 4:6, he says, don't obsess over your worries, but don't brush them under the carpet either. Share them with God, all your worry and all your gratitude together. 4:7, this conversation with God is a source of peace beyond a capacity that we cannot understand. And he says, commit yourself not to simply obsess over all that is going on that is wrong, all the evil and destruction that you see in the world, but turn your attention to the things that really matter, to where you see action that is worthy of respect, to places where justice is being done, and to goodness in all its forms. He says, make a list of them if you have to. In the New Revised Standard Version, it says in verse 8, to think on these things, which really is translated meaning tally up these things. In verse 9, pay attention to truly remarkable people around you who will show you how to walk this path. Furthermore, friends, think about these things implies an active and intentional process of choosing our thoughts. We have the power to direct our minds toward what is positive, what is uplifting, and what is edifying. We are called to meditate on those things that are true, aligning our thoughts with truth. Moreover, Paul instructs us to think about those things that are pure and lovely. Our minds are not meant to be filled with negativity or hatred. Instead, we are called to dwell on thoughts that are pure and honorable, bringing beauty and grace into our lives and the lives of others. By cultivating a mind filled with pure thoughts, we are better able to reflect the character of Christ that is around us. Paul urges us to think about the things that are admirable, those things that are excellent and praiseworthy. Friends, our world sometimes so often focuses on the negativity and dwells on the faults and failures of others. However, as followers of Christ, we are called to a different standard. We are called to focus on the good, to recognize and celebrate the excellence and praiseworthy actions of others. By doing so, friends, we create an atmosphere of encouragement and affirmation. But how do we practically apply these things to our lives? It starts with us being aware of our thought patterns. We need to be intentional about pausing in the midst of our busyness and examining what occupies our minds. Are we constantly dwelling on the things that are negative, those things that make us fearful and doubtful? Or are we actively seeking our thoughts that align with truth and goodness? And in my own life, I have found a way to shape my own thought pattern, and that is through study and meditation. Because, friends, I assert that what we immerse ourselves in, we become. It permeates our minds and our hearts, And by doing so, our thoughts are transformed. But let us be mindful of the influences that we allow into our lives as well. The media we consume, the conversations we engage in, the relationships we cultivate, all of these things impact our thoughts. Let us surround ourselves with people and influence that uplift and inspire us to fix our minds on what is true, what is noble, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. The mind is understood as an aspect of a person's consciousness that encompasses our thoughts and perceptions and emotions and experiences. Friends, our minds play a crucial role in shaping our individual personalities, our behaviors, and our subjective experiences of the world. Why is Paul exhorting the church to be of the same mind? Paul is urging these followers of Christ to cultivate a similar way of thinking and approaching life as Jesus did, and to oversimplify it, qualities like humility, selflessness, love, embracing and accepting of all humanity, and most of all, friends, the acceptance and forgiveness of ourselves. It is an invitation to us to cultivate the discipline of listening to the sound of the genuine in ourselves. I would like to share with you an excerpt from Howard Thurman's Sound of the Genuine, and I quote, "There is in every person something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in your mother and your father, and even in the people we cannot stand. And if you had the power, you would wipe them out. But instinctively, you know that if you wipe them out, you go with them. So you fight for your own life by finding some way to get along with them without killing them. There is something in you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in other people. And if you can't hear it, then you are reduced by that much." He goes on to say, "If I were to ask you, what is the thing that you desire most in life? You would say a lot of things off the top of your head, most of which you thought I would want to hear." And he says, "But I think that if you were stripped to whatever there is in you that is literal and irreducible, and you try to answer that question, it may sound something like this: I want to feel that I am thoroughly and completely understood, so that now and then I can take down my guard and look out around me and not feel that I will be destroyed with my defenses down. I want to feel completely vulnerable, naked, completely exposed, and absolutely secure. This is what you look for in your children when you have them. This is what you look for in a spouse if you get one. That I can run the risk of radical exposure and know that the eye that beholds my vulnerability will not step on me. That I can feel secure in my awareness of the active presence of my own idiom. And so I live my life then. This is what I'm trying to feel. It doesn't matter whether I become a doctor, lawyer, or housewife. That I'm secure because I heard the sound of the genuine in myself. And having learned to listen to the sound of the genuine in myself, I can become quiet enough, still enough, to hear the sound of the genuine in you. There is something in you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in other people. Now, if I hear the sound of the genuine in me, and if you hear the sound of the genuine in you, it is possible for me to go down in my spirit and come up in your spirit, so that when I look at myself through your eyes, having made that pilgrimage, I see in me what you see in me. Then the walls that separate and divide us will disappear, and we will become one, because the sound of the genuine makes the same music. I will end with a familiar, maybe not familiar to you, but passed down in the African American preaching tradition from one generation to the next. There is a wisdom story about a man who is hiking near his home who finds a strange looking egg. The man owns a chicken farm. The man takes the strange looking egg home with him and places it in an incubator with chicken eggs. And in time, this strange-looking egg produces a strange-looking bird. And so it was that even though this bird had a peculiar air about it, and it obviously seemed out of place among the other birds, the farmer decided that he would raise the bird like chickens, since chickens were all he ever raised. Soon, because all the bird ever saw were chickens, because all the bird was ever given to eat was chicken feed, because day in and day out he was called a chicken and treated like a chicken, the bird began to act like a chicken. He lost its peculiar air and no longer seemed so out of place. But one day a visitor comes by, and he asked the farmer, "Why do you have an eagle living among chickens?" The farmer replied, "He may look like an eagle, but I have raised him to be a chicken. He eats like chickens. The only life he knows is the life of a chicken, so a chicken is all he will ever be." And the visitor says to the farmer, "You cannot callously tamper with the soul of God's creation. God has placed within this bird the seed for greatness, and you have confined him to a barnyard. However, no creature, no longer how long you have had in this barnyard, however, this creature has been intended to fly in high and lofty places, and is beyond redemption, no matter how long this bird has had the habits of a chicken, but deep down within, a place where even your environment can't touch, God has placed the heart and soul of an eagle." The visitor lifted the eagle in his hands and he said, "God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly." The eagle took off. He was ascending, and the farmer threw chicken feed to the ground. And the eagle flew down to the ground and began to eat chicken feed. And the farmer looked at the visitor and said, "I told you he was nothing but a chicken." The farmer tries again, and he takes the eagle to the top of the barnyard so the eagle could see a little more of the countryside and know that there was a place that was bigger beyond the barnyard. Once again, he lifted the eagle in his hands and he said, "God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly." Again, the eagle takes off ascending. Again, the farmer throws chicken feed to the ground, and he looks at the visitor and said, "I told you he was nothing but a chicken." And so, refusing to give up, early the next morning, just about dawn, just before the sun was beginning to break the eastern horizon, the farmer went up a high mountain and said to the eagle a third time, "God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly. The eagle took off, ascending, and the sun began to pierce his gleaming eye. And the eagle took off, not looking back, not looking down, but only toward the greatness that God had intended for him. And so, LATRELL, why is this story important to this text? Because, friends, how we perceive ourselves is in direct correlation of how we respond and see others. And our words and our thoughts change trajectories. Thus ends the lesson.